And you're watching AWANI tonight. A new toll collection system will roll out by September, allowing road users to pay toll charges using debit and credit cards. Works Minister Dato' Sri Alexander Nantalinggi said the open system will be implemented on 5 highways as an early initiative into the transition towards the multi-lane fast-flow MLFF system. The 5 highways are Sungai Besi, New Pantai Expressway, Ampang Kuala Lumpur Elevated Highway, Guthrie Corridor Expressway and the Penang Bridge. Alexander said the government is looking to expand the initiative under the MLFF to provide more payment options including e-wallets and create healthy competition among the payment providers. His statement comes after a recent announcement by the Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim for the government to review Touch and Go's monopoly on highway toll collections. Alexander also informed that the MLFF will be done in stages, with a proof of concept expected in October and the location to be finalised soon. There are no plans for special coaches exclusively for women on the LRT, KL monorail and MRT. Transport Minister Anthony Loke said the spaces on such trains need to be optimised to allow for more passengers, especially during peak hours. Loke said the LRT, KL monorail and MRT only have 2 to 4 coaches for each train, but have a high frequency, which makes it impractical to include another coach specifically for women. However, he noted that Prasarana staff and auxiliary police are always present to assist commuters and ensure their safety. The government has no plans to abolish the Sedition Act for the time being, says Ramkrapal Singh. However, the Deputy Minister of Law and Institutional Reform says Putrajaya is not ruling out the possibility of repealing the law and that it could be considered in the future. In an interview with BFM, Ramkrapal also said that the government has begun stakeholder engagements to amend the Security Offences Special Measures Act, SOSMA. He added that a proposal was expected in the next few months. In its manifesto for the 15th general election, Pakatan Harapan promised to review and repeal provisions that restrict freedom of expression. These included the Sedition Act, the Communications and Multimedia Act, and the Printing Presses and Publications Act. In its 2018 election manifesto, it also promised to repeal draconian provisions under SOSMA, which gives authorities broad powers to combat subversion, threats to public order, and acts of terrorism, sabotage and espionage. In other news, 10 bipartisan parliamentary committees have been set up to look into issues of national interest. They would cover finance, health, cost of living, transport, education, security and human rights, among others. Law and Institutional Reform Minister Dato' Sri Azalina Othman Syed said the committees will act as a check and balance mechanism for ministries. The 10 committees were selected by the Parliamentary Select Committee, PSC, chaired by Dewan Rakyat Speaker Dato' Johari Abdul. Members of the PSC include Azalina, Deputy Prime Minister Dato' Sri Fadila Yusof, Transport Minister Anthony Loke, Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli, Opposition Chief Dato' Sri Hamzah Zainuddin and past Secretary General Dato' Sri Taqiyuddin Hassan. Azalina also said the previous 10-member all-party parliamentary group Malaysia will not be disbanded. Perikatan Nasional has rejected Pejuang's application to join the coalition, according to its Secretary General Dato' Sri Hamzah Zainuddin. He says the decision was made at a PN Supreme Council meeting on March 20th, chaired by Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. However, no reason was given. Pejuang had applied to join PN as a component party earlier in March, days after its founder Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad left to join Malay-based party Putra. Its president, Dato' Sri Mukris Mahathir, had said that Pejuang joining PN would prevent a split in Malay votes in the state elections. Disheartened by PN's decision, Secretary General Dato' Amiruddin Hamzah said the party would now focus on mobilizing its machinery in preparation for the impending state polls. Separately, Hamzah said the Supreme Council also decided to maintain the use of the PN logo at the state elections in Kedah, Selangor, Penang and Negeri Sembilan, while the PAS logo will be used in Kelantan and Terengganu. Khazanah Nasional Berhad's profit from operations increased to 1.6 billion ringgit in 2022 from 670 million ringgit in 2021. The better profit performance is attributed to its monetization activities and lower impairments of its portfolio.
Despite the current environment, or the environment last year, where it was quite tough for divestment, it was important for us to continue our investment cadence. Because this basically looks at the potential value return 5 to 7 years later. So this is why it was important for us to continue our investment cadence. Now, the results that we have here, I mentioned to you about the 2.2% rolling average. The year itself, our portfolio went down by 5.7%, and it still remains at a level of 122 billion.
The company declared a dividend of 500 million ringgit for the government in the 2022 financial year, with cumulative dividends declared since 2004 amounting to 17.1 billion ringgit. Amirul said the focus is now on building long-term financial returns, having deployed 6.6 billion ringgit for new investments and raised 2.5 billion ringgit from the monetization of assets.
Khazanah Nasional also gave assurance that it does not have any direct exposure to Silicon Valley Bank, SVB and Credit Suisse that collapsed in the past week. Though the Sovereign Wealth Fund may face indirect exposure, Managing Director Dr. Amirul Faisal Wanzahir maintained that any impact from the fallout will be insignificant to its operations.
Zero direct, either as a shareholder, as a bondholder, depositor or a borrower. Zero. When I say indirect, it means that we invest in general partners, we invest in GPs, we invest in all the funds, and they may have some relationship with SVBs. Now, for that, it's insignificant.
The same would hold true for Credit Suisse as well?
Same as Credit Suisse, yeah.
Separately, Khazanah Nasional said it would continue to support Malaysia Airlines Berhad MAB for the next 2 years, even as the national carrier returned to positive cash flow for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic. Managing Director Dato' Amirul Faisal Wanzahir said the focus now is on building a more sustainable operation with better customer experience.
We've mentioned to the market as part of the business turnaround plan that we would support Malaysia Airlines by 3.6 billion, which they have already drawn 1.3 billion. So there's still room for capex. I think the important thing here is the type of investment is a productive investment. So in other words, we're investing in capital assets which will generate revenue, as opposed to plugging operational losses, right? So as far as commitment is concerned, 3.6 we committed initially. They've only drawn 1.3, so there's room to support them even further. And the support we'll give will generate more revenue for the replacement of assets.
Amirul added that while Khazanah has no immediate plans to sell its stake in the airline group, it may look for strategic foreign alliances once the airline is on a stronger footing.
We will go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
I'm going to Mandalore so that I may be forgiven for my transgressions. Hang on, kid. This is the way.
The Mandalorian Season 3. Stream sekarang di Astro. Tambahkan Disney Plus Hotstar pada bil anda. WhatsApp kami untuk tawaran terbaik.
Welcome back. The Indonesian Parliament passed an emergency decree today that sets out new rules on investment and jobs in the country. The new law, which revises more than 70 other laws, has been praised by foreign investors for making business rules more straightforward. However, labour unions and green groups are criticising it as being too pro-business.
This decree replaces a similar law from 2020, introduced by President Joko Widodo, that had been partially deemed unconstitutional. Some of the changes that were proposed include cuts in severance benefits, new minimum wage limits, and the removal of some mandatory paid leave. Additionally, the law proposes looser rules on environmental inspections for investments. In 2021, Indonesia's Constitutional Court ruled that the passage of the 2020 law was flawed due to inadequate public consultation. As a result, the parliament was ordered to hold a renewed debate process within 2 years. Despite this court order, the parliament has now voted to pass the emergency decree, which means that most of the changes brought about by the law will stay. Legal experts are criticizing the decree as a government ploy to bypass the court's order. According to Indonesia's constitution, a president is only supposed to use an emergency decree to address an urgent matter, and the parliament is supposed to vote on it in the first sitting after its issuance. However, in this case, the jobs decree was issued in December, but parliament failed to bring it to a wider vote before going into recess in February.
More than 200 people were arrested as protests erupted across France, hours after President Emmanuel Macron's government narrowly survived a no-confidence vote in Parliament. In Paris, demonstrators burned piles of rubbish left uncollected for days in protest at Macron's unpopular pension reform, which will raise the retirement age by 2 years to 64.
The no-confidence motion, tabled by centrist MPs, received 278 votes, short of the 287 needed. If successful, Macron would have had to name a new government or call new elections. A second no-confidence motion, tabled by Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party, also failed. Now, the controversial bill to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64 will become law. The votes come after Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne used a special constitutional power to push the bill through without a vote last week. Polls show the majority of French are opposed to the reform and its decision to push through the bill. The anger was felt as protesters took to the streets in cities across the country, with police seen firing tear gas and charging at protesters.
South Korea announced new sanctions on North Korea targeting materials linked to its satellite program. This follows a barrage of ballistic missile launches by the North. The latest was on Sunday in response to South Korea and the United States staging major military drills.
A total of 77 items on the list will be barred from third-party export to North Korea, including optical components, solar panels, antennas and GPS devices. Since there is almost no trade between the two Koreas, the sanctions will not have much of an immediate effect, but they could be used as a guide for other countries to impose punishments on Pyongyang. This is the first time the South has released a list of materials that could curb the North's satellite manufacturing. North Korea has conducted a record number of weapon tests last year and fired its largest intercontinental ballistic missile last Thursday in what it called a warning to enemies. Pyongyang also said it will develop a new spy satellite by April this year.
That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.
Rasulullah SAW pernah bersabda,